Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified. So if you followed us this month, you've noticed our theme for the month is gardening, all things gardening. And so today we're going to really be digging into safety tips while gardening. We're going to be talking about 3 different things. We're going to be talking about just general safety tips, sun safety, which may be something that we don't think about. And then we're also going to be talking about tips for older adults and gardening. So I found a lot of great articles, and I use probably 4 different articles on this. So we will put the articles in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning about those and actually reading the full article, please do that. So we're going to dive in to talking about just general safety gardening tips. And so the first one that we're going to be talking to, which I thought was a very creative way to put, is wear appropriate personal protective equipment. And it's said to protect your 5 senses. And I never really thought about it that way. And so what do you all think? And have there things that you're like, I do that to protect my 5 senses, but I've never really thought about it?
I've never thought of it, but it makes sense. You want to protect your eyes, your ears, your skin, like all the things. But I would have never put it in that way. But I like that because it helps you remember. To me, it's a good reminder.
Yeah, like when you're walking out the door, like checklist, am I protecting, your sunglasses? And I think about like your hearing is if you have a large garden and you're on a tractor or something like that, protecting your ears in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we do them things, but I've never thought of it as protecting my 5 senses, type thing. And
so one it mentioned, which is not, I guess it could be touch depending on why you do it. Wearing sandals or slip-on type shoes when you're gardening is not a good idea. Now, I know we mentioned, and we may be talking about in some other podcasts about walking through your garden, but that's walking, not working. So if you are working in your garden, cover your toes, right? Or
Absolutely.
Wear those stable shoes, because if you step on one of your tools or something like that, that could puncture your shoe, or you could just hit your toe on something. Our feet, I feel like we always need to protect them. So that's just something that I never really thought about. But I found myself, I'm going to slip on my shoes, go out in the garden, pick some weeds, and then come back in. Because it's quick.
Yeah.
But if your chance of hurting yourself is pretty high if you think about it.
Well, I think about like flip-flops. Love them. Could live in things like that all summer long. But my goodness, they're a tripping hazard. Like even if you're not you're just walking down your driveway, you can stub your toe wearing them. So it makes it like protect your feet. Like, that's not a working shoe. I'm hanging out on the porch, chilling with, a sweet tea and a rocking chair kind of shoe.
Right. And it's not that you have to have like steel-toed shoes or, you don't have to go out and purchase anything. It's just, something that's sturdy that's going to protect your feet. So the next one that we're going to be talking about is your tools, right? So the different variety of tools that you do use in a garden, keeping them away from where you're working, because if you're moving around or you're walking, like we mentioned before, you may forget they're there or get distracted if you're doing it with your family, and you may fall on it or hurt yourself. So just thinking about, what am I going to do with them? Are you going to put them in a bucket and move those around? Or do you have a nice, pretty gardening apron that you want to wear, right? Or if you have overalls that, a lot of people wear those. Just pockets, things that you can put your tools in. That way you can keep up with them and not lose them too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where did that shovel go again?
Right. If you have just like little little scissors, gardening scissors or something, if you're, harvesting your herbs and thinking about, you lay them down and you're like, what did I do with that? Because I do it inside my house.
Yeah, and then you find it a week later and it's been rusted from being rained on and not taken care of.
Right. So safety as in keeping yourself safe. Your family members, if you have little ones running around, you don't want them grabbing those gardening tools. We've been battling that with my son. So we bought him his own little wagon with his own little tools, and that way everybody's safe.
Yeah, and setting guidelines, because I think of my 7-year-old, I can totally see him with his shovel or whatever he has running with his tools, and then you trip, and that could be a big problem. So trying to keep the kids safe around those tools as well, and setting some guidelines from the beginning so they know what safe use is.
And then the next tip, just general tip, which we'll talk about a little bit later too, is stay hydrated, right?
Yeah.
So summer's in Kentucky. I'm not sure if everyone here, hopefully we have listeners outside of Kentucky, but it can get pretty hot and humid.
Yes.
Even if it's not really hot. So just making sure that you are taking water with you and you're drinking water before, during, after, while you're outside exerting energy in the heat. And then the last one, just for general, is to plan. So maybe plan when you're going to garden. Are you going to go in the morning when it's cooler? Or are you going to go in the afternoon when it's cooler? Sometimes you have to go out in the heat of the day. It's not ideal, but it's kind of whatever you plan for. And that goes for working in the garden or picking your garden as well.
Yeah, I know for us, our oldest is our garden waterer. And we always try to tell him, like, you need to get up early and do this, or you need to wait till later, because, he's a teenager and he wants to sleep till noon. And then he thinks that's when he's supposed to get things done. And that is the absolute worst time. So being cognizant of that and trying to encourage the family members that have different tasks to also be aware of sometimes you don't need to be out there.
Right. And then again, ask for help if you need it. So I think that makes me think of, if you're on vacation, don't stress yourself and try to get whatever it is you need to done in the middle of the day, before you leave. Ask, a friend, a neighbor, like, hey, would you mind coming over tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon and taking care of these few tasks for us? Or it's just, if you just aren't feeling it and or you do get overheated, just ask somebody if you need that extra help. So we have talked about in a previous episode the benefits of gardening and absorbing that vitamin D, but we want to do that. We want to be mindful and do that in a positive way. So some health concerns with sun exposure on your skin is those UV waves from the sun can cause sunburns. I'm sure we've all had sunburns, right? And even if you are a little darker complected or tan easier, as some people may say, you can still get sunburn and it still affects your health. So it can cause cancer. You can't, I personally have some family members and I've had some spots before because I didn't take care of myself growing up. I didn't put sunscreen on. I just ran out and did the things. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. And then heat related illnesses. And we may have, you may personally have had this or been close to this, but you can have heat strokes, just exhaustion, cramps, sunburns, and then heat rashes, which a lot of people are probably relate more to. So keeping that in mind, we're going to go over a few tips. So as we mentioned before, but just planning outdoor activities prior to 10 a.m. and after 4, which is that 10 to 4 is the hottest part of the day.
And, I think it's worth noting, prior to 10 a.m. in the morning, the UV rays are lower. And so your chances of getting sunburnt and having some issues are much, much lower earlier in the morning. And you don't have to be quite as vigilant of covering all of your skin that early. So if you don't like to have to wear all the things, going out early in the morning while that index is lower may be a better plan for someone.
And definitely, and we've mentioned before, and probably various podcasts that if you have like a phone with apps on it, your weather, if you have a weather app, it'll tell you what the UV rays are for the day and for the different times. So that could be something that you plan, as we mentioned before, was very important. And I like how you mentioned to cover things and thinking about that, your hats. How many people wear wide brim hats? Not very many, right? But if you think about it, it's going to cover your ears. It's going to cover your face and your shoulders. You want to wear clothes that are long sleeve or long pants. You can actually buy clothes that are like UV protection now. So we've advanced in a lot of ways, but just make sure that you are protecting yourself if you do have to go out in those times, because sometimes, let's be real, life happens and we've got to do what we got to do.
And I'm all about hats, like all summer. No matter what I'm doing outdoors, I like to wear a hat, and I'll try to encourage the husband to do so as well, because it's just really easy to not realize how strong the sun is, and you can burn very quickly, especially if you're fair-skinned, but anybody can. So it's just a good thing. Keep a hat in the car, keep a hat in your garage, keep a hat nearby so it's not an inconvenience.
Right, and they have some really cute hats you can get.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually kind of in right now. So you can be stylish with your hat.
And not have to fix your hair.
Exactly. Benefit. Another benefit.
Right, another benefit. And then also, we talked about purchasing the UV protective type things, your sunglasses, thinking about those. Are you getting those quality sunglasses that will protect your eyes? We've really been thinking about that for our son, too.
Yeah.
As kids. And it's just important to protect our eyes. And we mentioned before, sunscreen products. So when purchasing sunscreen, you want to make sure that you are looking for a SPF of 15 or higher. And so read those labels, kind of like we talk about, read your food labels. Read those labels when you do purchase those. And if you have some in your closet, like I'm guilty of putting them back and like, we're going to use them. And then I end up going and buying more. Make sure it's not expired, because there is an expiration date on things like that. But that will help avoid the sunburns, and you want to make sure that you're reapplying it as well. And then just find cool and shady places for comfort. So if you are out there in the daytime and you get hot or overheated, just take a break. Sit under a tree or an umbrella or whatever that may be. There's no shame in taking a break and maybe even taking a nap, right?
Absolutely. If you can take a nap, go for it. But I think we don't think enough about what a difference being in the shade versus direct sun can make. And so, just having, like you said, like a tent or an umbrella or a shade tree nearby wherever your garden is that you're going to be, that you can just take those breaks, because it can be quite a bit cooler in the shade, and just give your body a chance to cool down and regenerate before you go back out to what you're doing.
And even having those places available, after, if you're picking your produce and you just put it all in a bucket and you're like, man, I need to sort through this, sit under a tree, sit under the shade, and just find some ways to cool off and not be in the sun as much. And we've talked a lot about drinking water and staying hydrated, but something to think about to avoid is you want to try to avoid alcohol and sugary drinks when you're out in the sun. So it is okay to enjoy those beverages. I know a lot of times a lot of people are like, I just need a cold Coke, a Diet Coke or whatever it is, Mountain Dew, whatever it is people may drink, which we say limit anyway. But this is just another reason to just limit those things when you are out in the sun.
Yeah, and I think if you are going to have a soda or another beverage outside, being aware, like, okay, I had that drink, so I need to drink even more water to help replenish, because that's not necessarily hydrating.
So the last thing we're going to dive into is gardening safety tips as we age. And as I was reading this article, I found some really cool things that I never really thought about, or things to do. And we have talked about this first tip a little bit, and it's just adapting your garden to what you need. So that could be the raised beds, right? So to limit your posture, having to bend over, or that movement, or just those container gardenings, those small things of where you can put those on a little higher area and you don't have to worry about that. But thinking about placement of your gardening elements, as the article said. So thinking about stepping stones,
Oh, yeah.
right? Where are you putting those? Are they in a flat area? Are they, unlevel? Where is that going to be at? Walking to your garden, or just in your flower garden, or just
Yeah.
a path to walk in.
Yeah, is it a tripping hazard? Yeah.
Right, definitely. And then having lightweight items. So whether it's your tools or the pots that you're putting your items in, just lightweight things that you have around that are easy to move if you need to move those. And thinking about that made me think lights and lighting. If you're out at night, do you have proper lighting in your walkways, through your gardens, or to your area? Because sometimes you may not go to your garden until dark, like we talked about. Do you have some lights or something that you can take with you so you can visibly see where you're going? Mm-hmm. This one I thought was really neat, and I hadn't really thought about, and it's adapting your tools. So finding tools that are easy to grip. When you purchase things like rakes and shovels, are they the right height? Are the handles the right height? And I never really thought about that. And there are tons of different ones, because I know I went last year to buy, I think it was a new shovel. And I was like, it was so tall.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even know they made them this tall. So it is something to think about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, my husband and I there's a foot difference in height difference. So if we had the same tools, that could be hard. Like either it's going to be way too small for my husband, or it's going to be like my height and I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. So I wouldn't have considered that, but that makes sense. And if you have children involved too, like getting something that they can work with that's not too much to handle.
Mm-hmm.
My kids laugh at me because I have purchased kids rakes for myself.
I can see me doing that too.
Because I'm short. And plus also they're not as long when I'm doing my flower beds. It's easier for me to get in my flower beds and to get them weeds out of. And so they've made fun of me for that. But it works for me. So
I mean, it makes sense. Everyone's different. And whatever works best. Who cares if it's for kids or not? It might be cuter. It might be in fun colors. You never know.
No, actually it's not. And it's not plastic either. I mean, it's made out,
like legitimate.
Legitimate,
right.
yes. Yeah.
But there's something to keep in mind that I had not thought about before. And it mentioned that you can put tape or something around the handle for you to grip it easier.
Oh yeah.
So I never really thought about that.
Also, it may help far as getting blisters on your hands. I don't know about you all. I mean, I don't use a rake all year long, and so when I do start using it, I end up with blisters. So maybe that's to help.
Yeah. You can wear gloves.
Yeah.
Or because I know sometimes when you wear gloves in the garden, your hands get so hot.
Yeah.
So either one. And there was another tip about tools is to paint the tool handles or spots on the tools with bright colors so you can find them. Because we talked about that earlier, as you may get busy and not know where you lay your item down. So, and that could be just, that could also be something when you put your tools up in the garage or something. It may be easier to find my garden tools are neon orange or, whatever it may be, but to help you find them there or in the garden.
That's funny. I'm over here ooh, I want to make it pretty. What color can I make it? Can I give it? I'm going to over here bedazzle some tools.
And that's fun.
Which is hilarious because clearly.
Well, they make all different types of duct tape, with color and that. So there you go, Tiffany.
Because I was like, ooh, washi tape, but that won't work. That'll just rip off. But duct tape does come in. There you go. There you go. Hey, arts and crafts. And if your whole family's doing it, you have your own tools. You can just color code.
Everybody has their own.
You have your own color. I like that. That y'all.
Pedazzle.
Look, I'm in.
We got her into gardening.
I found my calling. I'm going to bedazzle and duct tape everyone's tools to their own, style.
And you're also going to walk through dirt after you've turned it over. So
I'm just picturing my tools with leopard print and hot pink.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I encourage our listeners, if you already do this, Post it on our social media so we
Yes.
can see it. I mean, I think it's really cool. I've never thought about that. So I think that's a really great tip, but if somebody else has and they
Yes.
do it, post it on our social media, share it with us.
If you have a bedazzled tool or just any kind of personalization, I need to see this. Okay.
We need ideas.
I feel like we need a contest. Like, everybody decorate your gardening tools. And can we add this to the fair? I feel like it needs to be a competition.
yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I want to see pictures. Look at this. If you've been listening to these episodes, we are encouraging lots of participation in our social media. So please come find us on our Facebook page, because I want to see all of these things that everyone's doing.
So another great one, and we've talked about it before, is just thinking about the comfortable clothes that you wear. You want light fitting clothes that are lightweight. And again, if you want to invest in that UV protection, those are options to do. And now the next tip is really neat, and I never really thought about it, but I was like, you know what? I may change my mindset. So the next one is change your task every 20 minutes to use different muscles. And
Yeah.
so I was just thinking changing my mindset, because when I get started on something, I'm like, I got to finish it. Finish it. But then I'm like, well, why don't I just take a break, do a different task, use those different muscles? Because you can get really tired in the garden.
And I've never thought about that, but that's a really good tip. So
Yeah, and for me, I guess, and this is an odd thing for me to even think about, but I think about like just needing to move so that you're not like, especially if you're doing something where you're sitting still, like whatever that task may be, getting your body moving, because I have blood clotting disorders, and if I stay in the same position and don't move my body and let blood flow, I'm gonna set myself up for a blood clot. And I think that could be a risky thing if you're in the garden for a long time and you're really focused in on one task and you're not switching it up. It could just do harm to your body. So there's the benefit of let me move to a different task and work a different part of my body, but also not letting myself just be in the same position too long to where it could cause some kind of physical harm.
Right. And I think that kind of flows into our next tip is you can purchase, which I bought my mom something similar to this for Mother's Day last year, like a knee pad or a stool to use in the garden. And they're really neat. I may end up buying myself one this year.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. Because over here, like, do we need knee pads?
But they have, have, I think the one I bought her, like you could sit on it or flip it over and then kneel on it. And it was a pad. So they have some really neat things to think about.
I like that. I mean, you shouldn't be in pain. Like, if you're gardening and it's causing physical discomfort, that's not good. And I do like that they have these things for you. So you shouldn't have to be in pain. You should be able to enjoy it and not have physical discomfort.
And we mentioned a little bit about this before, but keeping your tools, your water, things close to you in a bucket. And then something I didn't think about was keeping your cell phone with you.
Yes.
In case something happens and you have your phone to call. Because I'm so guilty. If I'm outside in the garden, I just lay my phone somewhere. I don't even know where it's at. Sometimes I even leave it in the house. And I just go out for hours and it's there. So if I did fall or I did step on something or whatever that may be, I would be able to call. Where it is, if I don't, then I'm stuck.
Yeah, accidents can happen. And, if everyone else is inside, they may not be able to hear you yelling. Or if your garden is kind of away from where everybody else is, it could be hard to get someone's attention. So that's a good tip. I wouldn't have thought of that either.
Because a lot of times we're like, I don't want to get my phone dirty or I don't want to drop it and lose it.
Right.
Leave it in the sun, those type of things. But that is just something to think about. And even if you have, I think, the watches maybe, some people have watches, that may reach far enough that you could use that to contact somebody if you needed to.
Yeah, I guess want to check on that. I think because I wear my watch all the time, but I don't have a special, I don't have a data plan on my watch. So it has to be within so many feet of my phone. So yeah, you want to make sure. Don't think that your watch is going to call for you if you're too far away. Make sure you know what you can and can't do there.
To know what that distance is. Because I'm not sure what it is, but you may want to research it.
Yeah.
But it is an option. And then the last one, we did talk a lot about making sure you have your tools with you. We talked about the buckets, the aprons, the overalls. But if you're on a walker for some reason, put a basket on the front of it.
Yeah.
And put your tools in there and your water and your cell phone or whatever that may be. And that way they're there with you in front of you and they're easier to access.
Yeah, I think those are all really good tips. And, some of them we think about, but some of them you don't. So, I think it's good to always revisit and rethink. And, if you garden, maybe this is an episode you come back to every year just to remind you, like, okay, I'm getting ready. It's a new season. These are some things I can do to make sure I have a successful but also safe time in my garden.
So I hope you all have learned a few tips today. I was very surprised by some of these. And so hopefully you can take those and use those in your gardening experience this summer and making your garden experience safer. And as I mentioned earlier, I used a lot of different articles, and so they will be listed in our show notes. So if you want to read them again or revisit them or just find any other ones that are related, they're good websites. And then also you can visit your local extension office. Like we've mentioned, a lot in this whole gardening month is because we have a lot of resources and we love to share them, and they're free, which is awesome as well. And if you can't visit, like we mentioned before, send an email. Some offices have Facebook messages. So just any way that you can contact your extension office for more information, it's always welcome. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.